So Arlene McDonald, PointClickCare is a company. We are a SaaS-based platform in the healthcare space, specifically for post-acute care, seniors care facilities, or in the US, it would be skilled nursing facilities. So our software does electronic healthcare records, financials, amongst a number of other things in that space. We've got a vast array of partners who are doing some pretty cool things with technology in that space as well. So my role and responsibility is more on the corporate side than on the product side. So I'm responsible for all of our internal corporate technology from a systems and infrastructure standpoint.
So I work at Behaviour Interactive. So Behaviour Interactive is a video game company. So we build games. I would say...
My son wants a job.
Mine too.
Great game. Yeah, that's a great game.
So I would say most of the games today are online. So cloud has been very important for us. So yeah, we've been there since for a few years now. Our infrastructure is growing rapidly, so we're adding more servers. But it's not only about the infrastructure; it's also about the practices that we put in place, whether it's automation or how we deploy the code. So the bottom line is it's been growing for now a few years. It's become massive. We are with AWS right now. And we basically support at peak over 2 million concurrent players.
Wow.
With our infrastructure.
And we'll talk about that when we talk about cloud latency and things like that. We'll get onto that, I'm sure. That Marc, tell us about your company and your cloud architecture.
Architectures. So our CloudOps is our mission statement is to help people own their destiny in the cloud. We've been doing AWS since 2007, Google App Engine 2009, and other Google Suites, and Azure in 2012. But we've also, so that's using cloud, using the APIs that they offer. Think of the IaaS and PaaS capabilities of a cloud as our main focus, helping customers use it. As well as building IaaS for service providers around the world, like cable and wireless in the Caribbean, where they have a regional infrastructure they want to offer, so like an edge cloud service. And so our perspective on the cloud comes partially informed from the open source used to deliver cloud services, which was OpenStack was a big one that a lot of people tried and blew their brains out on. And now that's all switching away from OpenStack to except like even eBay, who was a big success story, has moved on to using Kubernetes to even deliver infrastructure. But Kubernetes is also an open source layer that runs on top of Amazon, on top of Azure, on top of Google. And it's, those of you familiar with containers, Kubernetes is a container orchestrator, the main engine that's being adopted out there.
I hope you know who Coach Copier 1 by now is, and if you've got some great successes out of it, please tell Jim. He's got a CD for sale for that one. We're the outsource partner that manages your transition to the cloud, or really your digital transition, and the network to get you there, the transport to get you there, and the security and the managed services. So in the end, we become the outsourcers from colo to hyperscale clouds and everything in between. So a lot of private cloud, a lot of dedicated private cloud, multi-tenant private cloud, colo, and hyperscale cloud.
For us, I think there's a number of learnings. Probably one of my biggest surprises, so I'll go back. So from a financial standpoint, I think you have to not underestimate the amount of complexity that can go into the finances as well. So you're going primarily from CapEx to OpEx, which, okay, for some that's more tolerable than others. So you're shifting costs. Our big thing was, aside from the privacy and security concerns, which are paramount, but still, on another side, we had to figure out what does the model look like for our ability to afford this. I think we experienced a lot of the same things where, on the corporate side, I think we paid a little bit more attention to that model because of our experience being a SaaS provider. So, we'd start doing workloads out in the cloud, and then we'd realize very quickly that, we've got a $500,000 bill coming for this month alone. And I think that you can't underestimate how much control you need to put into managing those costs, managing your transactions. Contract negotiations become a whole new art or skill, because you really need to understand where your fees are, where those hidden fees are, how you're going to be able to control that. If you don't have the right tooling up front, it can be an extraordinarily manual process to manage that control or that financial situation. Contracting is different. So, if I think, I don't want to migrate to the next version of my software because I don't like it or it's financially unaffordable and it's in my data center, well, I can choose if I own the licensing not to move. I might still have to pay some maintenance or whatever. But if you're with a SaaS provider, as an example, that totally disappears because you're locked in and committed to whether it's in a subscription basis and or whatnot to whatever sort of upgrades they're going to do. So I wouldn't say that was a shock necessarily, but it continues to surprise me how much effort we have to put into that. We had an example the other day. We run a small product. It honestly doesn't really have a place in our environment, but it's there. It's been there since before I got there. And we got our renewal this year, 100% year-over-year increase. I'm like, what justifies 100% year-over-year increase? So I can negotiate it. I didn't agree to the terms of the contract because I wasn't there when it was signed. But we didn't have the right limits and caps put on it, and so we either need to very quickly get off the software, or we will negotiate. I'm sure we'll get down from the 100% year over year, but it's probably not going to be to where I would like it to be, but I really have no choice. So those types of things continue to surprise me. And then I think on the security and privacy side, like the whole Patriot Act, I've been in government, I've been in higher ed, and the whole, Patriot Act, I can't even say the amount of times I actually looked at the person on the other side and said, have you actually read the Patriot Act? Because it's very much a buzzword. And I think for us, no doubt control of data becomes a huge concern. Knowing where your information is, how it's going from one system to the other, how you're managing and controlling that, data governance, things like that are not new yet.
Drift off of that, the rate of change is incredible. If you watch like Amazon's features that they're releasing every day, Google is trying to compete with that, Azure as well. It's mind-blowing. Yeah. You cannot keep up. And it's not just the partner, like here's an infrastructure layer partner, here's a middleware app platform partner, and you're going to need someone specialized in machine learning, someone specialized in big data, someone specialized in security on it. Because people cannot keep up with that rate of change.
Yeah.
So I totally feel the partner in the ecosystem side, and I think the talk earlier about really partner with your providers is super important, but also the broader ecosystem of how people are collaborating, like at the CIO level, sharing that data, sharing those practices, the best practices, the horror stories, the success stories is really important for Canadians to be able to change the way we're using technology so we can still compete. Yeah, the technology teams need to become the product managers. So it's like technology has not had, the IT org has not had a product manager as much before in the culture. But now that we have to be the service providers for the business side, that acumen around how to define the use case, really investigate the customer, what they want is the business outcome. And don't take their solution as what it is. Like work on the solution after defining the use case. Don't let them drag you into the features. Do not let the vendors lead you. Like when I'm talking about the vendors, I'm saying the major IBM, HP, VMware, like Cisco, they're partner with people who are going to be more vendor neutral on that side and being able to really guide you, not based on their roadmap, but based on your business outcome.
Well, the speed of the technology transformation means that we have to partner, as we all said, but that is a fluid partnership and actually stresses the organization a lot faster than, like the organization is not transforming as fast as the technology is being transforming. So we bring in partners on a deal or on a project, and that partnership becomes fluid as we evolve it. I don't think the procurement section of that organization is ready to negotiate that many partnership agreement in a short term. And so what we're seeing is a lot of the organizational transformation is not keeping up to the technology transformation that we're bringing for companies that are doing a digital transformation, particularly one in the cloud. That's kind of one of the things that occurs. And what we see as a provider of services at many times is we get a request to say, okay, we're moving to this cloud, we're moving to this technology, we're going to go do that. Boom, here, help me get there. And then we normally come in and pause and say, what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Oops, Is it a
Yeah.
technology innovation? Is it speed to consumers? What are you trying to achieve? And then the other question is, why? Are you trying to save cost? Or are you trying to innovate faster? Or are you trying to transform your data to digital data? Now we start that conversation, and all of a sudden, okay, now let's have a chat about where your workload should really run for this particular function, and how can we help you get there with the data sovereignty, the security needed, the transport, et cetera. So it becomes a much more complex discussion, but until you have the what and why, don't go to Amazon or Azure or private cloud or even to go to Scorpio One until you, let's go have that.
And to me, actually, to go back to the catastrophe, it's not if it happens, it will happen at some point. So developing the right process and practicing those process, like we do every few months role play in our organization where we actually practice a crisis mode. And we look at our processes and make sure that when a catastrophe happens, we can actually survive it. Now, when it comes to I would say exporting the data out of the cloud, there is a good portion of it that has to do with the technology you chose. I mean, I remember at one point, it was maybe in 2010, we went with a database engine which was React. And we stored a bunch of data in that database engine. And when it came to the point where we wanted to migrate to the new database that was out there, we found out that it was actually really hard to export the data out of that database engine. And even impossible. So choosing the right technology and sometimes even waiting a bit, like seeing how others are using it, like let Facebook use it for a few months or Shopify or let those startups or now they're big companies, but with that startup mind, let those use the technology for a few months, and then if it works well for them, they're going to write white papers on it. It's going to be all over the place in the news, and then we can use it.
Yeah, I just want to, because, and we'll talk about this later, also not just the speed of it, but latency and must be an important thing in gaming as well. Do you in terms of cloud, do you think about that?
I would say not as much. I think it's more a question of how you architecture the system, where because we distribute our architecture around the world, because we have players pretty much in every country now. So making sure data is as close to the user as possible is actually one of the things that's important.